"You're grounded until you apologize to your stepmom," my dad barked in front of the whole family. Laughter filled the room. My face burned, but I only said, "All right." The next morning, he sneered, "Finally learned your place?" Then he noticed my room was empty, and the family lawyer stormed in, trembling, "Sir, what have you done?" I never thought the person who taught me to ride a bike would be the same person who'd humiliate me in front of our entire family. But there I was, 17 years old, standing in our dining room while everyone laughed at me like I was some kind of joke. Let me back up. My mom died when I was 11. Cancer took her slowly, painfully, and I watched every horrible second of it. Dad grieved for maybe 6 months before Vanessa swept into our lives with her fake sympathy and designer perfume. They married 10 months after Mom's funeral. I was 12, angry, and completely powerless to stop it. Vanessa brought her daughter Brittany with her. Brittany was 14 then, blonde, manipulative, and instantly became Dad's golden child. Everything Brittany did was perfect. Everything I did was wrong. When Brittany got a B on a math test, Dad said she tried her best. When I got an A- in chemistry, he asked why I couldn't do better. The house that used to smell like Mom's lavender candles started reeking of Vanessa's overwhelming floral perfume. Mom's paintings came down from the walls. Her garden died because Vanessa wanted a pool installed. Even Mom's recipes disappeared from the kitchen, replaced by Vanessa's bland, tasteless cooking that Dad praised like it was gourmet cuisine. I kept my head down. Made good grades. Stayed out of trouble. Mom had left me some money in a trust fund that I'd get access to when I turned 18, and I counted down the days until I could leave and never look back. But Vanessa couldn't even let me have that small comfort. It started with little comments. "Your mother would be so disappointed in your attitude. Your father deserves better than a daughter who's so cold and ungrateful. Brittany treats me with such respect, why can't you be more like her?" I bit my tongue. Every single time. Then came my 17th birthday. Dad asked what I wanted to do, and I said I'd like to visit Mom's grave, maybe have a quiet dinner, just the two of us. Something simple to remember her by. Vanessa overheard and threw a fit. How dare I exclude her from my birthday? How dare I make everything about my dead mother? Dad caved immediately, like he always did. My birthday became a family dinner at some expensive restaurant where Vanessa held court, talking about herself the entire time. When dessert came, she'd somehow arranged for the waiter to bring out a cake that said "Happy Birthday Brittany" and my name, even though Brittany's birthday wasn't for 3 months. I thought it would be nice to celebrate both my girls, Vanessa cooed. Dad beamed at her. "That's so thoughtful, honey." Brittany smirked at me across the table. She knew exactly what this was. I should mention that I'd been working part-time at a local bookstore since I turned 16. Every paycheck went into my own savings account, one that Dad didn't have access to. I'd managed to save about $4,000 by carefully budgeting every cent. It wasn't much, but it was mine. My escape fund. 3 weeks after my birthday disaster, I came home from school to find Dad and Vanessa waiting in the living room with serious expressions. "We need to talk about your college fund," Dad said. My stomach dropped. "What about it?" "Your father and I have been discussing it," Vanessa chimed in, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "We think it would be fair to split your mother's trust fund between you and Brittany. After all, we're a family now, and Brittany deserves the same opportunities you have." I stared at them. "That money is from Mom. For me. It's in a legal trust, which your father can petition to modify as your guardian," Vanessa shot back, dropping the sweet act. "Brittany wants to go to design school, and that's expensive. You're smart, you'll get scholarships. Brittany needs that money more than you do." Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. "It's the right thing to do. Your mother would want you to share." That was when something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked. Like a windshield with a tiny chip that you know is going to spiderweb across the whole thing eventually. "Mom left that money for me," I said quietly. "She set up that trust specifically for my education and future. You can't just give it to Brittany." "We're not giving it all to her," Dad said, finally looking at me. "Just half. That's fair." "It's not fair. It's theft." Vanessa gasped like I'd slapped her. "How dare you speak to your father that way? This is exactly the kind of selfish, ungrateful attitude we're talking about. I walked out of the room before I said something I'd regret. The next day, I called a law firm that managed Mom's trust. The lawyer, Mrs. Patricia Kensington, had been Mom's friend from college. She listened to everything, then told me something that made my blood run cold. Dad had already filed paperwork to petition the court to modify the trust. He claimed financial hardship and argued that both his daughters deserved equal treatment. Can he do that? I asked, my voice shaking. He can try, Mrs. Kensington said carefully. But your mother structured this trust very specifically. She included language that prevents modification except under extreme circumstances. Your father would need to prove genuine financial hardship, which I doubt he can do given his income. However, legal battles take time and money. Even if he loses, it could tie up the trust for years. I felt sick. What can I do? For now? Document everything. Every conversation, every demand. If this goes to court, you'll need evidence that this isn't about financial hardship, it's about appeasing his new wife. I started recording everything after that. Not audio recordings, those can be illegal depending on state laws. But I kept detailed journals with dates, times, and exact quotes of what was said. I saved every text message, every email. I built a paper trail. Vanessa escalated. She started criticizing everything I did. My clothes were too dark. My music was too loud. I spent too much time reading instead of bonding with the family. She complained that I never called her mom, as if I'd ever betray my actual mother that way. Brittany joined in on the harassment. She'd borrow my things without asking and return them damaged. She'd eat my leftovers from the fridge and deny it. Once, she went through my room and found the journal where I wrote about Mom, my private memories and feelings. She showed it to Vanessa, who showed it to Dad. Dad called it concerning and obsessive that I was still dwelling on the past. He suggested therapy, which might have been reasonable, except he chose a therapist that Vanessa recommended, one of her friends who she'd already poisoned against me. I went to one session. The therapist spent the entire hour talking about blended family dynamics and how I needed to let go of resentment and accept my new reality. When I tried to explain that I just wanted to honor my mom's memory without being told I was wrong for grieving, she cut me off and said I was being defensive. I never went back. Dad threatened to force me, but Mrs. Kensington pointed out that he couldn't mandate therapy without cause, and a court would look unfavorably on forcing a teenager into counseling with a therapist who had a personal relationship with the stepmother. Things came to a head 2 months before my 18th birthday. Vanessa decided to host Thanksgiving at our house. She invited her entire extended family, people I'd never met and had no connection to. She didn't invite Dad's sister, Aunt Carolyn, who'd been coming to our Thanksgiving since before I was born. When I asked Dad about it, he said Vanessa felt more comfortable with her own family and we needed to respect that. Aunt Carolyn called me, hurt and confused. She'd always been there for me after Mom died, and cutting her out felt like erasing another piece of my mother from my life. I told Dad it was wrong to exclude her. He said it was Vanessa's decision to make as the woman of the house. So I called Aunt Carolyn and told her I'd come to her house for Thanksgiving instead. Vanessa exploded when she found out. "You will be at this family dinner, young lady. I've spent weeks planning this." "Then you should have planned to include Dad's family too," I said. Dad backed Vanessa, of course. He always did. "You're being deliberately difficult. You'll be here for Thanksgiving, and you'll be pleasant to our guests. That's final." I went to Aunt Carolyn's anyway. Thanksgiving Day, I woke up early, got dressed, and left a note saying I'd gone to Aunt Carolyn's and would be back that evening. I turned off my phone and spent the day with someone who actually loved me. When I got home around 8 that night, the house was still full of Vanessa's relatives. I tried to slip upstairs to my room, but Vanessa spotted me. "There she is," she announced loudly. The ungrateful little brat who couldn't even be bothered to show up for family Thanksgiving. Everyone went quiet. I could feel dozens of eyes on me. Dad appeared from the kitchen, his face red. "Where have you been?" "I told you. Aunt Carolyn's." "You deliberately defied me," he said, his voice rising. "You embarrassed your stepmother in front of her entire family." "I spent Thanksgiving with family," I said quietly. "Aunt Carolyn is family." "This is ridiculous," Vanessa snapped. "She needs to learn some respect. Make her apologize. I looked at Dad, silently pleading with him to remember who he used to be. The father who took me fishing. Who helped with homework. Who held me while I cried after Mom died and promised he'd always be there for me. That man was gone. Apologize to your stepmother, Dad demanded. For what? For wanting to see my aunt? For disrespecting this family. Vanessa clutched Dad's arm. She's always like this. So hateful. So spiteful. I've tried so hard to bond with her, but she throws it back in my face every time. She was actually tearing up. I almost admired the performance. Several of Vanessa's relatives murmured sympathetically. They were seeing exactly what she wanted them to see, a difficult, ungrateful teenager and a poor stepmother trying her best. Brittany stood behind Vanessa, wearing the most satisfied smirk I'd ever seen. Apologize, Dad repeated. No. The word hung in the air like smoke. Dad's jaw clenched. Then he said the words that would change everything: you're grounded until you apologize to your stepmother. Laughter rippled through Vanessa's family. Actual laughter, like this was entertaining dinner theater. Someone muttered, "Teenagers, am I right?" Another person said, "My kids would never get away with that attitude." My face burned. I'd never felt so small, so humiliated, so completely powerless. But I looked my father in the eye and said, very calmly, "All right." Then I walked upstairs to my room. I could hear Vanessa milking the moment downstairs, probably playing the victim even harder now. I didn't care. I closed my door, sat on my bed, and pulled out my phone. I had 37 missed calls and twice as many texts from Dad, all threatening and angry. I deleted them without reading most of them. Then I called Mrs. Kensington. It was late on a holiday, but she told me to call any time if things got bad. She answered on the third ring. "Talk to me." I told her everything. Every word of the confrontation. Every detail. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "How soon can you be ready to leave?" "Leave? You're almost 18. You have your own savings. Your father has created a hostile living environment, and he's attempting to steal your inheritance. We can file for early emancipation, but honestly, at 17 and 10 months, it might be faster to simply remove you from the situation and let you age out of his custody. Do you have somewhere safe to go?" "Aunt Carolyn's." "Call her. Tonight. Ask if you can stay until your birthday. Then start packing." My hands were shaking. "He'll never allow it." "He doesn't have to. You're not running away, you're removing yourself from an emotionally abusive situation with the help of your family and legal counsel. I'll handle your father. You just get yourself somewhere safe." I called Aunt Carolyn. She didn't hesitate. "Pack your things. I'm coming to get you." "It's late. His house is full of people. I don't care. Pack what matters most. We'll get the rest later if we need to." I'd never packed so quickly in my life. Clothes, laptop, important documents, photos of Mom, the jewelry she'd left me, my savings account information. Everything fit into 2 duffel bags and a backpack. I could still hear the party downstairs. Vanessa's voice rose above the others, probably still complaining about me. Aunt Carolyn texted when she arrived. I grabbed my bags, took one last look at my room, the room I'd grown up in, where Mom used to read me bedtime stories, and walked out. I made it down the stairs and to the front door before Dad noticed. "Where do you think you're going?" Everyone in the dining room turned to look. Again. "Aunt Carolyn's," I said. "I'll be staying with her." Dad's face went purple. "Like hell you are. You're grounded. Get back upstairs." "I'm leaving." He moved toward me, but Vanessa grabbed his arm. "Let her go," she said sweetly. "If she wants to be ungrateful, let her see how good she had it here." Dad shook her off. "You're not taking those bags. Anything in this house belongs to me. These are my personal belongings. Clothes I bought with my own money. My laptop that I purchased. My mother's jewelry that she left to me in her will. Your mother's jewelry is a family asset. It's specifically bequeathed to me in her will, which you know because you were there when it was read. I'm taking what's legally mine and leaving." Aunt Carolyn appeared in the doorway behind me. "Is there a problem here?" Dad's eyes widened. Carolyn, this is between me and my daughter. Your daughter called me crying because you publicly humiliated her for wanting to spend Thanksgiving with me. Now she's asked to stay with me, and I've agreed. She's 17 years old enough to choose where she wants to live. You can either let her go peacefully, or I can call the police and we can discuss your attempt to withhold her legal inheritance and force her to remain in an emotionally abusive environment. The room went dead silent. Dad looked like he'd been slapped. Emotionally abusive? I've given her everything. You've replaced her mother, stolen her inheritance to give to your stepdaughter, isolated her from family, and tonight you humiliated her in front of strangers to please your wife. That's not love. That's control. Vanessa stepped forward, her mask finally slipping. She's a spoiled brat who needs to learn her place in this family. She's a child who lost her mother and then lost her father too, Aunt Carolyn snapped. Come on, sweetheart. Let's go. I walked out without looking back. Dad followed us to the driveway, yelling threats about calling the police, about custody, about how I'd regret this. Aunt Carolyn ignored him, helped me load my bags into her car, and drove away. I didn't cry until we were halfway to her house. Then I completely fell apart. Aunt Carolyn didn't try to comfort me with empty words. She just held my hand and drove. The next morning, I woke up in her guest room feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. Everything hurt. My head, my chest, my heart. My phone had been buzzing all night. I finally looked at it. 63 messages from Dad. Most were angry. Some were pleading. A few were threats. The most recent one, sent at 6 in the morning, made my blood run cold. You've made the biggest mistake of your life. I'm taking you out of my will. You'll get nothing. Come home and apologize, or you're dead to me. I screenshot it and sent it to Mrs. Kensington. She called immediately. Perfect. Keep sending me anything like this. Your father is building our case for us. What case? The case that he's financially and emotionally manipulating you. Every threat, every demand, every attempt to control you through money, it all supports your position that he's not acting in your best interest. Now, I need you to do something. Don't respond to him. At all. No matter what he says, no matter how much he threatens or pleads, do not engage. Let him show everyone exactly who he's become. It was brutal. Dad sent message after message. He tried anger, get home now or you're not my daughter anymore. He tried guilt, your mother would be ashamed of you. He tried bribery, come home and I'll forget this happened. We can work something out with the trust fund. I didn't respond to any of it. Vanessa started texting too. Her messages were pure poison. You're a selfish little witch who's tearing this family apart. Your father is suffering because of you. Brittany is devastated. You should be ashamed of yourself. I forwarded everything to Mrs. Kensington. 3 days after I left, Dad showed up at Aunt Carolyn's house. He pounded on the door, demanding to see me. Aunt Carolyn called the police. Dad's face when the police car pulled up was almost worth everything I'd been through. Almost. The officers explained that I was nearly 18, I'd left voluntarily, I was with a family member, and I wasn't required to return home if I didn't want to. They suggested Dad contact a family lawyer if he wanted to pursue custody, but they also noted that given my age, most judges would likely respect my wishes about where I wanted to live. Dad tried to argue. Tried to explain that I was being manipulated. That Aunt Carolyn was turning me against him. One of the officers, a woman probably in her 40s, looked at him and said, "Sir, your daughter is 17, she's articulate, she appears to be in good health and spirits, and she's clearly expressed that she doesn't want to go home with you. Unless you have evidence of abuse or neglect in this home, there's nothing we can do. I'd suggest you respect her decision and try to work this out through proper channels." Dad left. But not before shouting loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear, "You're throwing your life away. Don't come crying to me when you realize what you've done." The next morning, Mrs. Kensington called with news. Your father's petition to modify the trust has been denied. The judge reviewed the trust documents and found no legal basis for modification. Your mother's trust remains intact and will be fully accessible to you on your 18th birthday. I actually started crying. He can't touch it? He can't touch it. The trust is ironclad. Your mother made sure of that. Mom had protected me, even after death. But the story doesn't end there. 2 weeks after I left, Dad came to Aunt Carolyn's again. This time he didn't pound on the door. He knocked quietly and asked if we could talk. Aunt Carolyn made him wait on the porch while she asked if I wanted to see him. Part of me didn't. Part of me wanted to let him feel exactly as rejected as he'd made me feel. But I agreed to talk to him. Aunt Carolyn stayed in the room. Dad looked terrible. Exhausted. Defeated. "I've made mistakes," he started. "That's an understatement," I said. I know I failed you. After your mom died, I was lost. Vanessa made me feel like I could have a normal life again. A complete family. I wanted that so badly that I ignored how much I was hurting you in the process. You didn't ignore it. You chose it. Every time Vanessa or Brittany was cruel to me, you took their side. Every time I tried to honor Mom's memory, you told me to move on. You tried to steal my inheritance to give to a girl who's not even your daughter. He flinched. I was wrong about the trust fund. I should never have tried to modify it. Vanessa convinced me it was fair, but it wasn't. That money is yours. Your mom wanted you to have it. What changed? I asked. Why are you here now? Dad looked at Aunt Carolyn, then back at me. Our lawyer called me yesterday. He told me he'd seen the messages I sent you. The threats about cutting you out of my will. The demands that you come home or lose your family. He said if this went to court, I'd look like an abusive parent trying to financially manipulate my child. He said I'd lose. And then he said something that really got through to me. What? He said, you already lost your daughter the night you humiliated her to protect your wife's ego. Now you're just deciding whether you want a chance to win her back or whether you want to make it permanent. Silence filled the room. I don't want to lose you, Dad said, his voice cracking. You're my daughter. My little girl. And I've treated you like you were the problem when really, I was the problem. Vanessa was the problem. I chose protecting her feelings over protecting you, and that was unforgivable. Is Vanessa here? I asked. No. She doesn't know I came. We've been fighting since you left. She wants me to force you to come home, to get the police involved, to cut you off financially. She thinks you need to learn respect through punishment. I realized something when she said that. She doesn't care about you at all. She never did. She just wanted you to submit so she could feel like she won. And you're realizing this now? I should have realized it years ago. But I was afraid of being alone. Afraid of facing my grief. Vanessa filled a void, and I let her because it was easier than dealing with the pain of losing your mother. Aunt Carolyn spoke up. What about Brittany? What about the trust fund? What about all the things Vanessa has done to your daughter over the years? Dad rubbed his face. I've told Vanessa the trust fund is off limits. It was a non-starter to begin with. As for Brittany, she's her mother's daughter. The way she treats you is inexcusable. I should have stopped it a long time ago. What does that mean for you and Vanessa? I asked. I don't know yet. But I know I can't keep choosing her over you. That ends now. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But trust isn't rebuilt with one conversation and an apology. I need time, I told him. I can't just forgive everything and come home and pretend it's all okay. You hurt me, Dad. Really, really hurt me. And Vanessa and Brittany have made the last 5 years of my life miserable while you looked the other way. I know. I'll give you whatever time you need. But please, don't shut me out completely. I want to fix this. I want to be your father again. We talked for another hour. It wasn't pretty. I laid out every horrible thing Vanessa and Brittany had done, and for the first time, Dad actually listened without defending them. He apologized over and over until the words started to lose meaning. When he left, he hugged me. It felt strange and familiar all at once. I love you, he said. I never stopped, even when I did everything wrong. I know, I whispered back. After he left, Aunt Carolyn asked how I felt. Like someone who's been drowning and just reached the surface, I said. I can breathe again, but everything still hurts. My 18th birthday came 3 weeks later. True to her word, Mrs. Kensington made sure I got full access to Mom's trust fund. It was more than I'd expected, almost $200,000, carefully invested and grown over the years. Enough for college, for living expenses, for building a real future. Dad sent me a birthday card with a handwritten note inside. Your mother would be so proud of the woman you're becoming. I'm trying to be proud of myself again too. Love, Dad. I didn't go back home. Instead, I enrolled in college for the fall semester using Mom's trust fund. Got my own apartment. Started building a life that was actually mine. Dad and I met for coffee once a week. Slow, careful conversations where we tried to find each other again. He told me he'd given Vanessa an ultimatum: either she treated me with respect, or he wanted a divorce. She chose badly. She doubled down, insisted that I was a manipulative liar trying to destroy their marriage, and demanded he choose between her and me. For the first time in 5 years, Dad chose me. The divorce was ugly. Vanessa tried to claim entitlement to half of everything, including the value of Mom's trust fund. Her lawyer laughed her out of the negotiation when Mrs. Kensington showed up with the ironclad trust documents and a paper trail of Vanessa's attempts to steal it. Brittany sent me a message during the divorce proceedings: I hope you're happy. You destroyed my family? I blocked her number without responding. She wasn't worth the energy. The thing is, I didn't destroy anything. Vanessa destroyed her own marriage by being exactly who she'd always been: a manipulative, greedy person who saw my father as a meal ticket and me as an obstacle. Dad destroyed his own marriage by finally waking up and choosing his daughter over his ego. I just refused to let them destroy me. It's been 2 years now. Dad and I have a relationship again. It's not perfect. We're still rebuilding trust piece by piece. But we have coffee every week. He came to my first-year college finals week and brought me care packages. He sends me texts about random things that remind him of Mom, and we share memories instead of trying to erase her. The first few months after I moved out were the hardest. Not because I missed living in that house. I didn't, not even a little. But because I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'd wake up in the middle of the night convinced Dad would find some legal loophole to force me back. Every time my phone rang, my stomach would drop, expecting another threatening message or Vanessa's venomous voice on the other end. Aunt Carolyn noticed my anxiety. She sat me down one evening about a month after I'd moved in and asked me straight out if I felt safe. Physically? I said. Yeah. Emotionally? I'm still waiting for everything to fall apart. She nodded like she understood completely. Your father was my big brother. Growing up, he protected me from bullies, helped me with homework, taught me how to stand up for myself. Watching him become someone who needs protection from himself has been one of the hardest things I've ever experienced. Do you think he'll actually change? I asked her. She was quiet for a long moment. I think he's capable of change. Whether he actually does it or not depends on whether he's willing to face some very uncomfortable truths about himself. Some people would rather stay comfortable in their dysfunction than do the hard work of becoming better. Those words stuck with me. School became my refuge. I threw myself into my classes, joined study groups, volunteered at a local youth center. Keeping busy meant less time to spiral into anxiety about what Dad and Vanessa were plotting next. It also meant I started building a life that had nothing to do with them. I made friends who didn't know anything about my family drama. To them, I was just another college freshman trying to figure out life. It was refreshing to be seen as a whole person instead of a problem to be managed or a victim to be pitied. One of my professors, Dr. Miranda Chen, taught a psychology course on family systems. During a lecture on dysfunctional family dynamics, she described something called triangulation, when one person manipulates 2 others against each other to maintain control. Everything she said about it perfectly described what Vanessa had done to Dad and me. After class, I approached Dr. Chen and asked if she had office hours available. She did, and I ended up telling her an abbreviated version of my story. What you're describing is textbook emotional manipulation, she told me. Your stepmother positioned herself as the victim and your father as the rescuer, which automatically cast you as the villain. Once that dynamic was established, anything you did to defend yourself would be reframed as proof of your villainy. So there was nothing I could have done differently? You could have continued to submit and lose yourself in the process, Dr. Chen said bluntly. But you chose self-preservation instead. That takes tremendous courage, especially at 17. Her validation meant more than she probably realized. For so long, I'd wondered if I was being unreasonable. If, I should have tried harder. If leaving made me the bad guy in the story. But I wasn't the bad guy. I was just the one who refused to keep playing the rigged game. The divorce proceedings dragged on for 8 months. Dad kept me updated on the major developments, though I told him I didn't want to know every detail. What I did learn was ugly enough. Vanessa had hired an aggressive attorney who tried every tactic imaginable to squeeze money out of Dad. They claimed she'd given up career opportunities to be a homemaker, even though she'd never worked during their marriage by choice, not necessity. They tried to argue she deserved alimony based on the lifestyle Dad had provided. They even attempted to claim partial ownership of the house because she'd contributed to its upkeep. Dad's attorney shut down most of it. The prenup Dad had insisted on before marrying Vanessa, one of the few smart decisions he'd made, protected most of his assets. But Vanessa still walked away with a settlement that made my blood boil. Not because of the amount, but because it felt like she was being rewarded for years of cruelty. The legal system isn't always about justice, Mrs. Kensington explained when I vented to her about it. Sometimes it's about minimizing damage and moving forward. Your father is cutting his losses and ending a toxic marriage. The money is the price of his freedom. I understood the logic. Didn't mean I had to like it. During this period, Dad started therapy. Real therapy, not the sham counselor Vanessa had tried to force on me. He'd call me after sessions sometimes, not to dump his problems on me, but to share insights he was learning about himself. My therapist asked me why I was so desperate to create a complete family after your mom died, he told me during one of our coffee meetings. I realized I was trying to replace what we lost instead of honoring it and building something new. I wanted to fast forward through the grief, and Vanessa offered that fantasy. She promised me normalcy if I just went along with everything she wanted. And you believed her. I wanted to believe her. There's a difference. Deep down, I knew something was wrong. I saw how she treated you. I heard the comments, witnessed the favoritism, noticed how you withdrew more and more. But admitting I'd made a catastrophic mistake meant facing my grief all over again. So I chose denial instead. These conversations were painful. Necessary, but painful. We were excavating years of damage, and some of what we found was ugly and hard to look at. But at least we were finally being honest with each other. He's been dating someone new, a kind woman named Laura who's a widow herself. She has 2 grown sons and 0 interest in replacing anyone's mother. She treats me like an adult worth respecting, which is refreshing. Vanessa moved to another state with Brittany. Last I heard, she'd married someone else and was already making her new stepdaughter's life miserable. Some people never change. I'm majoring in social work. I want to help kids who feel as powerless as I did. Kids trapped in situations where the adults who are supposed to protect them are instead the source of their pain. Mom's trust fund is paying for everything: tuition, rent, food, textbooks. Every time I buy something I need for school, I think about how she's still taking care of me. Still protecting me. Still making sure I have the future she dreamed of for me. People ask if I regret what happened. If I regret saying no to my father that night, starting the chain of events that blew up my family. I don't. That night, standing in that dining room while strangers laughed at my humiliation, I made a choice. I chose myself. I chose my dignity. I chose to honor my mother's love instead of submitting to people who wanted to erase her. And the next morning, when Dad sneered at me expecting submission, expecting me to have learned my place, he found my room empty instead. Found his sister's lawyer on the phone tearing apart his petition to steal my inheritance. Found out that his daughter had more strength than he'd given her credit for, and more support than he'd realized. The family lawyer didn't actually storm in trembling and asking, "Sir, what have you done?" That part was exaggerated for dramatic effect. But Mrs. Kensington did call him that morning, and she did inform him in precise, legal language exactly how badly he'd screwed up by putting his threats in writing. She explained that he'd created a documented pattern of financial manipulation and emotional abuse that would destroy him in court if he continued pushing. Dad told me later that the call terrified him. Not because of legal consequences, but because hearing a lawyer list out everything he'd done wrong made him realize he'd become someone he didn't recognize. Someone who chose pride and a toxic marriage over his own daughter. The truth is, revenge isn't always about making someone suffer. Sometimes it's about refusing to suffer anymore yourself. It's about standing up and saying I deserve better than this even when the people you love are telling you to accept less. I didn't destroy my family that Thanksgiving. My family was already destroyed, I just stopped pretending otherwise. I stopped playing along with the fiction that everything was fine, that Vanessa was a loving stepmother, that Dad was a good father, that I should be grateful for scraps of affection and respect. And when I stopped playing along, the whole house of cards collapsed. Some people probably think I was too harsh, too unforgiving. They'd say Dad was grieving, that I should have been more understanding, that families should stick together no matter what. Those people didn't watch their father laugh along while his wife mocked their dead mother. Didn't have their inheritance nearly stolen to benefit a stepsister who made their life hell. Didn't spend 5 years being told their grief was inconvenient and their memories were unwelcome. I gave Dad chances. So many chances. I bit my tongue through years of disrespect and dismissal. I only drew the line when he tried to take the last thing my mother left me and humiliate me publicly when I dared to object. That's not being harsh. That's having a backbone. These days, I visit Mom's grave every few weeks. I tell her about school, about my new life, about how her trust fund is helping me build a future. I tell her that Dad's trying to do better. That we're healing, slowly. I like to think she'd be proud of me. Not for blowing up my family or standing up to Dad, though maybe for that too. But for surviving. For refusing to let grief and anger turn me into someone bitter and broken. For taking the love she gave me and using it to build something good. The money she left me wasn't just financial security. It was a lifeline. A message from beyond the grave that said, I knew you'd need help someday. I knew you'd need a way out. I'm still here, baby. I'm still protecting you. And she was right. So yeah, I was grounded until I apologized. Instead, I left. I built a new life. I took control of my future instead of letting Dad and Vanessa control it for me. Best decision I ever made. If you're reading this and you're in a situation where someone's trying to make you feel small, trying to control you through guilt or money or family obligation, know that you don't have to accept it. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to choose yourself. And if people call you selfish for it, let them. Their opinion means nothing compared to your peace of mind. I learned my place, all right. But it wasn't the place Dad thought I should learn. It was the place where I stood up for myself, honored my mother, and refused to be diminished by people who should have loved me better. And I'm never going back.